Hey, everybody, welcome to Three-Peat After Me, a brand new RiverDogs podcast looking at the championship three-peat for the RiverDogs in 2021, 2022, and 2023. My name is Jason Kempf. I'm the RiverDogs Director of Broadcasting and Media Relations. During this three-year run, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of really cool people and hear a lot of cool stories, and we thought, why not share those with you, RiverDogs fans, people who care about this team, and hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories and get to know the players, the coaches, the RiverDogs staff members who are such a big part of these 3 years and what has made them so special for everyone. And I think we've got a great first guest lined up here on our premiere episode. He was the bench coach for the championship team in 2021. He left in 2022 but came back to manage the team in 2023. Took the team from last place in the first half to a championship. We're going to talk to RiverDogs 2023 manager Sean Smedley today on Three-Peat After Me. Hey, Sean, how's it going, man? Good to see you. How's the offseason been so far?
Good to see you too, Jason. It's been great, man. Just nice being home, doing stuff around the house and with the family. It's been awesome.
I think that when we kind of started the idea of this podcast and talking about what's been a really special run, 3 championships, it's kind of cool to hear from people who have been a part of more than one of them. And you're one of those guys. You've done it in 2 different roles, and obviously this last year in 2023 as the manager of the RiverDogs. But if I can, ask you a tough question that probably hasn't settled in. When you think about a minor league organization winning 3 different championships with probably a combined 100 to 120 players, not many of them who have been around for multiple playoff games in that run. As a guy who's been around professional baseball, how special is it to think about, the success that this organization has had for 3 years in a row?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable because of the turnover of the players. To be honest with you, there's not been too many repeat players, so you're not getting the same guys each year. You're getting a different group each season, and I think that's what honestly makes it special about the minor leagues is you're not coming in with the same group of guys and the same coaching staff, and everything's different, and that's what makes it honestly unbelievable.
So going back to that first year, I think it was sort of odd in 2021 because something that had never happened before happened, and that was the minor league season was canceled, and everybody was kind of trying to find a way to stay fresh and figure out, how to best approach this when eventually the pandemic was over. So, as somebody who was inside minor league baseball at that point as a coach, and what were you set up to do in 2020, and then what were you able to do to kind of stay busy and stay involved in baseball during that break?
Yeah, 2020 was a weird year. It was funny because Blake was actually staying at my house down here for spring training, and they told us just to go home. So Blake's like, "Well, we'll just hang out for the weekend, see what happens. Like, we'll be back by Monday." And then they said, "No, it's going to be 2 weeks," and then it was a month, and then it was the whole season. So it was a really weird start to that year. I was supposed to manage our Princeton affiliate that year in 2020. That was supposed to be my first role as a manager. So when that kind of got kicked up, we did a ton of Zoom calls, a lot of manager Zoom calls about players, Zoom calls about everything, honestly, situations. What would you do here? What would your rules be? What would this be? So it was a lot of learning experience. We did a lot of Zoom calls. It felt like 3 or 4 a week, but it kind of kept you sharp, kept you in the game. Doing a lot of lessons with kids always helped because you're trying to come up with new stuff. Even if it doesn't work with little kids, it's okay because they're not going to remember how to do it the next week anyways. So
You
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, it was just a lot, going into that season, just in general. And then after that, I ended up going down to Australia and going to winter ball down there during COVID, which was also a different experience, which, kept me fresh in the game and ready for 21.
You brought up Blake, and obviously he's a guy that's been a big part of the three-peat as well. But your careers have been kind of aligned with one another as you've worked together several years. I know that you guys are good friends. Can you kind of explain what that relationship is between the 2 guys that we've had the fortune of watching manage here in Charleston for these 3 years? What your relationship is as coworkers and as friends?
Yeah, I met Blake I think he signed in 2015 as a player, so I met him in spring training that year. it was, you know, good friends, teammates, okay, like get to know each other. And then my year in Princeton, when I was an intern in Princeton, after I got done playing right away, I told him he was still playing at the time, and I was like, this is the transition I want to make. Um, and he's like, all right, well, just do the internship, then don't just quit. And I was like, all right, well, this is difficult. So being a video guy was never easy. A lot of computers and that kind of stuff, which I'm not great at. But yeah, it really started that year in Princeton because he was old for that team, and we were actually closer in age and personality than he was with a lot of his teammates. So we kind of clicked that year in 2016 in Princeton. And then the next year he became a coach, basically same time as me. And we were kind of linked ever since, 2018 in Hudson Valley together, 2019 in Hudson. 2020 we were supposed to split and then back together in 21. So it's been a good relationship with Blake. We've always been good friends and good coworkers together, and it's always been easy, which makes it fun.
You talked about the video internship to kind of get your career after playing baseball started, and you mentioned it's difficult and it wasn't necessarily what you probably would have envisioned yourself doing at any point. But how important was that year just to get your foot in the door and to experience what now some of the people on your staff as a manager are doing to help you out on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those jobs. It's one of those things like you're like, okay, I just kind of gotta grind through it because it's late nights. You wouldn't think it would be, but you're cutting video, you're doing stuff extra for the coaches, making sure they have what they need before the game. Um, but it gives you a different outlook on what other people are doing, and that's important in any job is to know what other people have to go through um, to be successful and to try to get into this game because not everybody gets in this game. I know there's guys that do 4 or 5 internships just looking for an opportunity, looking for an organization that'll be like, okay, this is our guy. Let's keep him around. Let's keep him going. We've had some really good interns in Charleston over the last couple of years that have stayed with the Rays. And that's, a testament of them just working hard and getting after it. And I feel like that's the way into this game is hard work, the little things, the effort. That's what put you in front.
You think about your first year in Charleston, you were the bench coach in 2021. And I know that coming out of spring training, it was our first year here in Charleston being with a Rays affiliate after a long time with the Yankees. So there was a lot of unknown from our end and probably on your end about, hey, what exactly is this going to look like once we're on the field after 2 years off, essentially. But I remember everybody coming out of camp being really excited about the roster that was here. And you look back at the guys that have made a big league debut already, several of them with the Rays, but Brett Wisely with the Giants. Angel Felipe has done it as well with Oakland. Alika Williams in Pittsburgh now. But was that kind of the feeling, if you can think back to breaking camp in 2021, like we've got some dudes on this team and it's going to be a fun year?
Yeah, we did. We kind of thought in 21, we're like, okay, we got an older group, but these guys are really good. And the only reason why they're older was because of the COVID. Um, like a guy like Alika, who was a first rounder in 2020, like he probably would have made it to Charleston the year before if they would have had a season, or he would have been in Hudson Valley and maybe he skips a level. We felt like we had an older team, but a really talented group. And it was kind of like night one, Brett Wisely hit ninth. Like that, now he's, up in the big leagues doing his thing, producing at that level. It's unbelievable. But like that team was truly, it felt a cut above everybody else in that league. And when guys moved up, the next guys came in and they were ready to go, which, that's what you need in the minor leagues is the next man up because the goal is to get the player to the next level. And that 21 team was just loaded with next level guys. Get them up, get them out, move them on.
And one of the guys who ended up doing that I don't think was a headline prospect that year coming in, and there were plenty on the roster, was Curtis Mead. People had started to say, man, this kid is really good at baseball, but he was over from the Phillies a couple of years prior, hadn't been above rookie ball because of the pandemic and being traded. But it didn't take long for Curtis to kind of, when you heard the ball come off of his bat, you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, Curtis is a special ball player. I really got to know him in Australia before the 21 season. He was playing for the Adelaide Giants, but he knew that all the Rays guys were with the Perth Heat. So um, we would we'd actually hook up a lot and just go, grab dinner after a game. We got stuck in Adelaide for 2 weeks, so because of COVID stuff.
Sure.
So we got to hang out a lot, talk about the Rays, talk about stuff, watching him play against us, which I did find myself rooting for him, even though he was hitting against us and hitting homers against us. I was still rooting for him because he's a Rays guy. I was like, I had to look at my manager in the dugout and be like, dude, I'm sorry, like I'm gonna root for Curtis. But no, we could see what he had and what he could do with the bat and what he could be. But when he came in that 21 season in that spring training, we knew that okay, this is a special ball player. We can really handle the bat and do a lot of things offensively, and everything else is going to improve and get him to the big league level. And he's done it every step of the way, and that's the cool part.
I think one other moment from early in the year, and that year didn't get off to, it ended up being a pretty dominant season as far as clinching a playoff berth, and we'll talk about that. But one moment early in the year, I think the team was 500 through the first 10, 15 games. But in Colombia on that first road trip, when Alexander Ovalle had 10 RBI, and you're like, man, I remember watching it as we were broadcasting remotely here at the Joe, and you're like, this kid just can't miss the barrel of the bat right now. What was that like to be in the ballpark? You'd hear about it in the NBA, like the hoop looks massive, or a guy says it looks like a beach ball coming in. But to watch a guy have a night like that, and then I guess to back that up, did you ever have a night like that as a player as well, but where you had everything go right?
Yeah, that night for Alex was unbelievable, man. It's just one of those nights you just can't miss. Like they keep throwing it at the same spot. You're looking for it. You're getting it. You're on time, and then the ball's just jumping. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has one of those days, one of those nights, whether it's early in your life or in pro ball or whenever it is that you're just like everything, everything's there for me. Like I can't miss it. And when you have those days, you just take advantage of them because those days are slim. And when you have the 10 RBIs that he had that night, like that's a quarter of RBIs. That's something that puts you on the map and gets you going, and hopefully you ride that through the rest of the season. And he did, and he's had a good career with us, and he keeps moving. So it's awesome to see him keep going.
Now, coming out of COVID that year, we started assuming there weren't going to be any playoffs. That was kind of the rule put in place. Like, we're going to play the regular season. In the end, the standings aren't going to be that important. There's not going to be a championship to play for. And then it was like mid-June, and we got a memo that, oh, we're going to have playoffs now, and it's just going to be the top two teams, regardless of division or direction or where they're located. The top two teams, record-wise, are going to play. And at that point, you guys had established yourselves, 7, 8 games in front of everybody else. So it was a pretty realistic situation that you were going to be playing for a championship if you just kept it up. But does that give you a little bit extra juice when there is something to play for? There's a trophy at the end of the line. There's rings to play for. I know that it shouldn't, right? As a competitor, you want to win no matter what's on the line. But when you hear, okay, we do have a chance to become champions, did that give a little bit of juice in the clubhouse, you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, you go out to compete and to win. You want to be selfish in your work and selfish in what you do prior to the game, but when the game starts, is competing and winning. And I think when you hear like, oh, well, there might not be playoffs. What are we playing for? Okay, we're playing for the best record, and then they say, oh, we are going at it, and that's when it came down to it. We're like, all right, well, let's make the playoffs. Let's win our division. Let's be the best in the South, and then, or I think there was 3 divisions that year.
Yep.
I think there was 3, so it was just the top 2 records, and it was just all right. Let's just go win as many games as we can. And I mean, there were stretches where I felt like we didn't lose against certain teams. I felt like there was a week it was like two or three straight weeks against Augusta where we just didn't lose, and I felt like that was just rolling. Like everybody knew the RiverDogs are coming to town. We're gonna have some trouble today.
There were a ton of key impact players, and we'll talk a little bit about those guys also. But Diego Infante ends up being named the league MVP. But amidst all of those transactions, it was a trade. toward the middle of the year, and I know you work with catchers, but he wasn't necessarily just a catcher. He did a little bit of everything in a way that I hadn't seen. But when Matt Dyer joined the RiverDogs after a trade with the Mets, I mean, I thought he was fantastic playing third base, left field, center field. He was behind the plate. He ended up catching the final out of the championship winning game. But what did his addition as a guy who works with catchers mean to that team?
Oh, it was big. You never really know if like during the trade deadline if you'll actually ever get a player. It's very rare that you get somebody else from another team. Um, and we ended up making that trade where we traded. I think it was Rich Hill for
Yep.
Matt Dyer. And when Dyer walked into our clubhouse and we saw him, he was physical and I got excited because he's a catcher, somebody new to work with, something different. Being a tall catcher like that, it's always a difficult thing, and trying to get him in a good position. And yeah, he gave us an extra boost that I hadn't seen before when a random guy comes into a clubhouse. But that's a testament to him. Is he blended in, like he came in, didn't have a chip on his shoulder, came in. All right, we're here to work. I'm a Ray. Let's go. And he fit right in with the group, which was awesome because that's not always the easiest thing in the world. I remember when Willie Adames got traded from Detroit to us when I was playing in Bowling Green. Willie was the same way. He fit right in. The clubhouse didn't change. It was like, all right, he's our new shortstop. Here's Willie Adames. All right. And Willie's honestly had an awesome career with us and with the Brewers. So those guys are hard to find, those good clubhouse guys. And when Matt came in, it definitely boosted the team.
I think one of the most interesting things about that season then was the way the regular season ended and then into the playoffs. So you guys had clinched for a little while, and the season ended in Kinston with a 6-game series on the road. Nothing really to play for in terms of playoff eligibility for you guys. But down east, the Wood Ducks were still playing to get in, and there was another team in Salem trying to get in as well. So you go there for the end of the regular season. I remember early on in that series, Tanner Murray got hurt, and that was at the same time that Oslevis Basabe was called up to High Bowling Green to fill in, and all of a sudden you're kind of looking at the depth go away a little bit in a tough series, and that was the one team that sort of had the RiverDogs number here at the Joe earlier in the year, and then in that final series of the regular season. And on the last day, they had to win. Salem had to lose. And I remember after the final regular season game, everybody was kind of watching to see where the bus was going to go the next day, and it ended up being nowhere. You were going to stay there at the Mother Earth Motor Lodge in Kinston and get ready to start a playoff series. So what was that week, or I guess 9 days in the end, like when you're playing that team? There's not necessarily a lot of drama involved on your end, and then you're waiting to see where you go, and you find out you're staying there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a long 9 days in the Mother Earth Motor Lodge. But no, it was good because I remember that series. We clinched a couple weeks before that. These guys had a lot to play for. It kind of reminded me of this past year when we were playing Fayetteville. I felt like the team was there, like we're playing hard, but we're like, all right, like we got to get back up. Like we
Sure.
got to figure out a way to get back going again. And luckily we did. Luckily Johan came out when the playoffs started. Johan went off. Matt Dyer was going off. These guys really carried us. And then we had the two awesome starts from Seth Johnson and Ben Brecht. But yeah, it's a weird feeling that last week when you're like, okay, we got to keep going, but we got to get ready for the playoffs. Obviously the main thing you want to do is just keep winning. Just keep grinding, keep winning, and then put yourself in that position anyways, beating them. But I think they felt like they had our number, beating us for that week. And I think we just thought we were the better team overall. And, the one thing nice that I remember sitting in a hotel with Blake talking about it between who we play with. Salem, we're like, we don't know what we get.
Right.
We have no idea. We have no idea, but at least when we played down east, we had a couple things that they were doing that could help us win ball games, and I felt like we used that against them to help us win ball games. So it's kind of nice to know who you're going to play. It's the same thing that happened this year in 23 is I wanted to play down east.
Right.
I know everybody else was like, no, we don't want to play. We don't want to go back to Kingston. I was like, I do. because I don't want to play somebody new that we don't know, we've never seen. I'll take this familiarity of the situation versus somebody completely different.
I know you can appreciate what he did because you're a catcher and you worked with pitchers, but how big was Ben Brecht and the way he pitched in game one? You brought him up in Kinston to kind of get that series started and make sure that really all you had to do was win 2 more games with the last 3 guaranteed to be at home if it got to that point. And then he did it again in game 5 when everything was on the line.
Yeah, I mean, there was one thing about Ben is he was an ultra competitor. Sometimes the stuff didn't jump out at you, 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but he had really good carry and he knew where to put the baseball. And when you give team start like that, give you 5-6 innings, and they give you the pitch count, and they, basically carry you through game one, you feel really good about the rest of the series. It's the same way with anything in any sport. You win game one, you feel really good. It puts you in a good spot, whether it's on the road or at home. That first game is the biggest, in my opinion. And he basically put the team on his back and did it game one and did it game 5, and it was awesome to see.
You mentioned that getting that game one was big, and you guys won the first 2 in Kinston, and it felt like, okay, we're going back to the Joe. It's going to be a sellout, standing room only crowd the next night, and then it just didn't work out. And then it was the next night, it was 5,000 plus, just couldn't quite get the job done. And all of a sudden you're sitting there coming into a Sunday, and that team, as you mentioned, had been so dominant all year. I'm not sure they had to play a back-to-the-wall win-or-go-home type of game to that point. So was there kind of a nervous energy in the clubhouse, or what did you sense as they got ready for a game that was going to be the last game of the season, and you really hoped it ended with you celebrating on the field?
I think a lot of it was our pitching. Frankie gave us a good start game 4. He kept us in a ball game 4. Game 3, I felt like got away from us pretty quick. But game 4, I felt like we settled back in. We were like, okay, like it was a tight ball game. We're right back in it. And then game 5 with Ben on the mound, I felt the team felt comfortable. I think we thought, all right, we got our guys. We got the bullpen lined up. We're in the right spot to win this ball game. And Blake made a move to put, oh gosh, name's blanking on me. Willie in.
Yeah.
To put Willie in, and ended up being a great decision because he had that 3-run double or 3-run triple. So it's just one of those things. Like sometimes it's that move. All right, well, what can we do different? Where's our lineup need to be? Who are we facing? And everything kind of lined up to where, all right, like this is the team that's going to win it tonight, and we got this.
Yeah, I think when it's funny that was going to be my next question. When Willie Vasquez, who was playing in his second game with the team, is starting and comes up with a hit like that, and you could almost feel, because it had been Ben was pitching really well, but it had been a back and forth game. Nobody could get anything established, and then he splits the gap. The place goes nuts. That was the loudest I'd heard a minor league stadium up until that point. I think that's changed maybe over the last couple of years, but it kind of felt like a sigh of relief, if you will. I remember just guys running all over the dugout and out on the warning track, high-fiving, and it felt like at that point there was no way you guys were going to lose.
Yeah. It's always that one big hit, that one big swing, that one big pitch that just changes the game, completely turns it around. And Willie did that for us in 21. For a guy that's only played 2 games at the low A level, he did it. He put himself in a good spot, got a good count, and hit it hard. That's all we can ask from these guys. And it seems like every playoff run has that swing. It really does. Like I felt like, this past year in 23 was the Cooper Kenny home run against Myrtle Beach. Yep. Like that homer to me was the one that won us the series, that put us in the championship. For that year, it was the Willie Gapper to right center that did it. Like that changes the game. You see it all the time in baseball.
And I know you're not thinking about this at the moment when Matt Dyer catches the pop-up and the celebration can finally start. But an organization that hadn't won a championship in just about 100 years, and in your first year there, that's exactly what you guys do. When you see the ball end up in his glove, I know the coaching staff always has a chance to, you guys are right next to each other, have that moment by the steps of the dugout. What goes through your mind, or do you not even remember? Like you've been going at this for 7 or 8 months. Like, what is that feeling when you know that your goal is achieved?
It's pretty special, man. I just remember jumping around with the coaches, watching the ball go in Matt's glove. I honestly thought Berglund was going to go try to catch it, but he stayed out of the way and let Matt catch it. I still give him crap for it every once in a while when I see him, just because I wanted the catcher to end it.
Right.
But no, I mean it was just you just feel like the weight's off. Like you're like, oh, we did it. Like we did it. Like we got close a couple times in Hudson Valley. Me and Blake did together. We've been on that side where you're in the losing dugout and you got to walk up and pack your stuff and you're not excited about it.
Right.
So to feel that relief of all right, we did it. Like this is what these guys have worked hard to do all season is to win a championship, and they got to accomplish their dream and win one, and hopefully one day do the same thing in the major leagues.
And then to fast forward a little bit, the next year you're a bench coach under Morgan Ensberg at AA Montgomery. You guys got close again. But where were you when you found out you were going to be a manager and that it was going to be with the Charleston RiverDogs, and how excited were you for that opportunity?
I was actually up in St. Pete at the time. Our house got destroyed during that hurricane, so we were staying up in St. Pete. Got a phone call from MJ and MJ and Jeff, and they said, "Hey, like this is our plan. You're going to be the manager of the RiverDogs," and I was pumped. I was pumped to be back in Charleston. I was excited for my first true opportunity to be a manager, not the Zoom call manager as I called myself in 2020.
Right.
But it was a really cool phone call. I was excited for it. Excited, ready for the opportunity. I felt like I was ready to manage. I felt like the year in AA was really good for me to be with older players, to see how they went about their business, see how challenging AA is, because AA there's a reason why they call it the man's league, and it's true. You see a lot more failure there than you do at the lower levels. Really good players fail at that level. So it's good to see the ups and downs of that league and then come back to the A-ball and be like, all right, this is what professional guys do. They don't have to be told to do this or do that. They're ready to go, and that's kind of what our whole thing this past year was: be a pro. Like, learn how to be a pro. We had a really young team, and that was kind of our motto, was be a pro.
I remember you were here in January for the annual hot stove dinner, and you're like, some of this looks familiar, but it's been a couple years now, so it took a little bit to kind of get back in place. How long did it take for you to be like, okay, I've been here before, I'm really comfortable here, and sort of settle in?
Probably a week, maybe a week. It comes back to you quick. But I remember when coming back in January, I didn't know where we were turning down or where we were at. Just getting used to the ballpark again. But it comes back pretty quick, especially when you get back in your routine of everything and kind of just getting in the groove.
I'm going to ask Blake the same thing, but it didn't take you long to rearrange the way he had his office set up the 2 years prior, which he made sure to comment on whenever he came back. Now, was that entirely your idea? Was John Horaz involved into what level, or what was the idea behind rearranging the office?
So I'm an easygoing person, and Johnny goes,
not.
how do you want your office? How do you want it? Where do you want it? And I was like, dude, I don't care. Just pick it. And he goes,
Sure.
You want it the way Blake's was, or you want it different? I was like, I don't care. I said, whatever makes the most sense for you. And that's what he went with. So
it's Johnny Horaz's fault, just to put it out there. He's the interior decorator.
He's the interior decorator. He's the clubhouse manager. I let him do his job. He wanted to move the desk around, and I said, hey, go for it. Do what you got to do. So he went with the power desk. So when people walk in, I'm staring right at them. A little different, but that's okay.
Hey, it worked in the end.
Yeah, it did. I got a lot of. You should switch to desk pass. Maybe you'll get some more wins in the first half. So.
Yeah, I heard several of those, but if only that kind of stuff had an impact the way we think it does. I think the biggest difference probably, you talked about how experienced the 2021 team was. You come back to manage 2 years later, and this league is now completely young, a lot younger than it was then. There's a lot of even 17-year-old, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds because, and I've talked to Jeff and George about this, this league is now, they felt like maybe we were a little bit old in 2021 and they needed to challenge guys a little bit sooner. Did you notice that, especially going from AA back down to this level, how much younger this league was?
Yeah, you could see it right away. You could just see it in the details of the game. Just the small mistakes that were made. You're like, okay, like an older player wouldn't make that mistake. An older player wouldn't would learn from this. But it's a lot more repeating with the young players, repeating the same thing over and over and over again. But that's a good thing. That's how they learn. You learn through your mistakes, and I felt like this has become a younger league just in general. And I think it's going to be that way for a long time. I think without the lower levels, the Hudson Valleys, the Princetons, it's going to be straight from the complex, straight from the DR if you're ready, straight to A ball. You're going to see some really good teams with some really talented players that are 18, 19 years old. And then you're going to have your few college guys mixed in that hopefully are only there for a month or two, kind of like what we had with Dom Keegan and Chandler and some of our pitching and those guys. Like, all right, you're here, time to go on, time to move on. This is now almost a advanced rookie ball level.
I think that there was a lot of excitement again coming out of spring training this year. A lot of young bats. Cooper Kinney, a lot of people felt like he might be here the year prior if he hadn't had the injury. You had Chandler Simpson, some of the best speed in minor league baseball. Xavier Isaac has some of the best power. How excited were you to have that roster in your first year as a manager, going back to when you broke camp?
Oh, I was really excited. I remember just thinking about, okay, who's the potential team? Day one of spring training, we're in Orlando. Who do we got? And I'm trying to learn names and faces because a lot of these guys I had never seen because I was in Double A. That's one thing about going to the upper levels is you lose track of the young guys, even for a year. So seeing all these guys, learning them, I knew who they were. I knew the potential, but I didn't really know what type of ball player they were. And then when you start seeing it, you're like, all right, this is a talented group. It's a really talented group. And that's why myself and the coaching staff and the organization, when we weren't doing so hot in the first half, was like, just keep going. Like, this thing's going to turn. At some point, these guys are going to figure it out. They're going to be better than they were. And pretty much the entire group did that. And that's what honestly made this last year really special for me as a coach, was to see the growth of the players.
And I know that that's kind of what all coaches say, that some of the most rewarding seasons are when you have some really low lows and you fight through it and everybody lives up to their potential. But that being said, people say winning in minor league baseball isn't that important. Like, I've seen the clubhouse when you're struggling, when teams are struggling, and it's not fun, right? So how do you, it's tougher than it says, just keep your head up and it's going to be fine. When you're in that moment, sometimes it feels like, man, what do I have to do to kind of to break this bad luck or whatever you want to call it? So how tough was it some days when you felt like you did everything right and a game just got away at the end and all of a sudden it was 3 of 4 and you're looking at the standings and it's just not going where you want it to? How tough was that?
It's difficult. It's difficult, but one thing that I was really happy with was our just the staff in general. Everybody stayed positive. Like, there was no, oh gosh, I come to work today again.
Right.
Like, this is gonna be a tough day. No, like, everybody came to work, ready to go, ready to make the guys better. And I hope they fed off us not getting down, not being emotional about losing. I think that's one thing is, as a coach, as a manager, as a whatever your role is in this game, like, you can't show emotions when you lose. You gotta stay in your lane. Okay, this is what we need to do to get better. You can't just be like, this team stinks. The guy can't do it. Everybody can get better in this game, and that's kind of what our staff thought. And it was really fun to watch.
How happy were you that there are halves in minor league baseball this year?
I was pretty excited about the halves because it still would have been a close climb, but I think we would have had to win a few more games to
Right.
beat out Kannapolis.
Yeah, there felt like a refreshed atmosphere in the clubhouse on day one of the second half this year for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? It was refreshing, but it was nice because it was the same group that we ended the second half. Like, it wasn't like the draft guys came right away. We were already established in first place by a few games before we got the new draft guys in, which, that's a testament to guys that maybe don't play every day, got an opportunity and started playing well, and really showed what they could do. Especially guys like, Christopher Berette, who had a rough first half and he had a great second half, or John Diaz. Guys like that, they took off, which was really fun to watch.
Before we talk about the playoffs and how that year ended, what was the first moment for you when you saw Chandler Simpson and he did something and you're like, wow, this guy is fast in a way that you don't see very often?
I think it was early. It was against Myrtle Beach. He hit a ground ball shortstop and just beat it out. And then the next game, they were playing their infield halfway in. And I was like, this guy's different. If they have to play their infield halfway in just to keep him from getting a base hit on the ground, like that was something where I was like, this is unbelievable. Triples, to me, watching him run, there was no stop sign. Like I couldn't stop him. Like I think somebody would have said something to me if I would have held him up at second, especially if there's nobody in front of him.
Sure.
Like he hits a ball in the gap, he hits a ball down the line, like it's a triple every time. Like there's nothing that can slow him down. So he's something that I could only dream about running that fast without totally breaking down.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually used his speed as a way to help with infield defense, right? I remember before some games hitting ground balls, and you're like, okay, Chandler Simpson's running. You've got to get it from short to first in this amount of time.
Yeah. Like we would always do that. We put guys on the clock, and I started just saying, hey, it's Chandler. Like it's 3/8. Like you got to get rid of this baseball. Like there's no time. Like you can't really simulate him running the bases. And I think other teams, before they knew who he was, didn't know how to simulate it. And that's
Sure.
why like routine ground balls to second base were like bang, bang, or safe. Like, and that's just, you can't simulate it unless you're on a clock. But even on a clock, the game's different. And he just puts that pressure on teams that is just unbelievable. I mean, Myrtle Beach, or who was it? It was Columbia. They picked over twice and then pitched out twice.
Yep.
And he still was safe at second base. Like that shouldn't happen. Like in the mind, like just let him steal second base first off, or pick over 3 times and just
Right.
hope for the best. But no, I was really pumped with Chandler and the way he learned how to steal bases. It wasn't just pure speed. I mean, the pure speed is always there, but it's learning how to steal a base and not get thrown out. Being so efficient that you steal 90 bases, you get caught 10 times. Like that's where you want to be.
You talked about the throwing a pickoff over for a third time and just taking your chances as a catcher, and you're trying to throw guys out as high of rate as you can. How do you feel about the new rules, pitch clock, pickoff limit, and those kind of things, the shift? What is your overall impression? I'm guessing it would have been different maybe as a player than it is now, but as a manager, what do you think of some of the rule changes?
I love the pitch clock. I'm a big fan. I think the game should be fast. I don't. It takes away the fluff. That's all we've talked about. It takes away the fluff of the game, which I'm good with. Speed it up. Like we don't need all this extra time now. It drives me crazy when hitters aren't ready to get in the box and they get called for a strike, but that's a different story. But no, I mean the bigger bases is great. The shift is fine. I think the shift to me was always like if you're willing to shift and put yourself in that spot, like great. Like you can still get beat on the other side of the field.
Right.
If a good hitter wants to hit the ball that way, then so be it. The pickoff one was always one I wasn't a huge fan of. I think I'm just used to it now. You just have to pick your times when to pick off. You can't just pick off to pick off. You got to pick your times, pick your chances, and that's the best way to control it. Some teams in the major leagues don't pick off anymore. Some teams still do a ton, but have put themselves in spots where guys can steal bags easy. So.
You talked to bring it back to this season. In 21, Down East was kind of the team that, quote, had your number. You get to play them in the championship this year. Myrtle Beach was kind of a team that was, well, they've become a rival as much as you can have a rival in minor league baseball the last 2 years. But able to clinch a playoff berth against them, and then that means you're going to face them again in the playoffs. How much were you looking forward to seeing your guys go against a team that had been probably the best team in the league from start to finish?
I was really excited. And it was kind of that week that we clinched the playoffs against them. We played great at the beginning of the week. Guys were pumped to make the playoffs, to clinch. We did it. The next night we got blown out. That's a pretty typical thing that happens in minor league baseball. After you clinch a playoff berth, the next day is usually not that good. But on Sunday, when I think it was Sunday where we scored 10 or whatever it was, to kind of put a little exclamation point on it on that week.
Yeah.
I felt really good going against Myrtle Beach. We knew we were going to get left-handed arms, and I felt like our lefties were comfortable with left-handed breaking balls. And to me, it's a good rivalry. I mean, it's we play them so much every year. I know teams change, people change, but it's still Myrtle Beach and Charleston. Always a good matchup.
And you got yourself in one of those winner-go-home games again, like there was in 2021. It was at Myrtle Beach. I didn't sense from anybody on the team that they thought that was going to be the last game of the season, and that because we were either going to stay an extra night in Myrtle Beach and then head to wherever the winner of the North Division was located, or you're taking a bus back to Charleston and everybody leaves early the next morning and you don't see each other again until spring training. But it didn't feel like any guy was prepared to do that or had any inkling that might be their last day together.
No, I remember the night. So after winning game 1, 2-1, and we lost the next one close. We were in the clubhouse, and after losing a game, which realistically, you don't do all the time. But I told the group, like, if you would have told me 3 months ago we would be in this spot, game 3 against Myrtle Beach, like, this is where we want to be. Like, nobody would have thought that 3 months ago when we were the worst record in the league. And told them to play some music and turn it up loud and, like, get it going. Like, we're not nervous. Like, they should beat us. They're the best record. They should beat us. They're at home. Like, let it all out. And the next day, obviously, putting up 18 runs, I felt like we were the loose group. Like, we were the team that was loose and ready to go and not tight, and I felt like they were.
I know that after Myrtle Beach had clinched the first half, we went there early in the second half. And I don't know if you'll remember this, but when we were leaving, their clubhouse manager, Jason, said something about hope to see you again in September as we were going to leave to get on the bus on Sunday. And you turned around and said, "Oh, you're going to see us again in September." And it turned out to be a very prescient statement by you that we would be back there. But you think about how the season ended, and you win a championship. So you're the last team since like the early 2000s to go from worst record in the league in the first half to the championship and celebrating at the end. You never want to be at the point where you were the worst in the first half, but as a manager, that has to feel pretty good about accomplishing the goals you wanted to and seeing individual development from each player.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you want to win games. You don't want to be the worst team. You'd rather keep it tight and be in a good spot. But no, it came down to the players. They put themselves in good situations to get better. Learned scouting reports. Learned what they were looking for at the plate. It wasn't just go up there and swing. It was, okay, I have an approach. I'm ready for a certain pitch. Pitchers, I think our strike percentage went up like double almost, or it seemed like it, compared to the first half when we were walking guys left and right, and putting ourselves in spots where it's not 3 hits that beat us. It's 2 walks and a homer. It's not, we're beating ourselves. I felt like defensively everything got a little bit cleaner. Stop making all the routine errors, the bad decisions, the outfielders throwing the wrong bases, give up an extra base, and all those small details. I felt like in the second half translated into wins. Like, we got rid of them, and that's what a winning ball club does.
And then in the championship series against Down East, once again, a familiar opponent with the championship on the line for you as a member of the RiverDogs. Sort of a strange game 1 because it was a best-of-3 series 1. It was noon on a Sunday. Not a huge crowd there. There was a rain delay that didn't really feature any rain. where everybody was kind of standing around like, what are we going to do here? And I believe it was with the bases loaded, rain delay ends, there's a bases loaded walk. That felt like the moment in that game when, all right, we're going to take game one here. All we got to do is win one of two back in Charleston.
Yeah. It was a weird day, weird game. Yeah, when we took the lead, it tied it up, and then took the lead. I felt really comfortable about where we were at with our bullpen. Um, I thought Herline was unbelievable. He came in a second and third one out situation after they put the sack bunt down, and he shut the door. He was really a guy down the stretch in the bullpen that I could trust and really be like, hey, here's the ball, go, go win us a ball game. And these guys played stellar defense and didn't make a mistake, and that was honestly the difference.
And then you come back to Charleston, it's packed, chance to win the championship for 3 consecutive years. You can only dream about a start to a game, I think, that you guys had. When Martinez hit the home run, first of all, I felt bad for anybody who had to give him a high five after that. Because first was Ronnie. He probably took the brunt of it, and then you got it a little bit later when he calmed down. But those kind of moments, similar to the Willie Vasquez triple in 2021, I was like, this is going to be a special night. Now, it probably got a little bit closer than you wanted it to, but when you can have a dream start like that, the crowd's juiced up, do you kind of just look around at some point and say, man, this is exactly where I want to be?
Yeah. I think it was after the inning, honestly. After all the runs, 2-out rally, it was just everything. The John Diaz single up the middle I thought was huge, which played it 2, and I was like, all right, that's 4 or 5 at the time. And then Martinez hits the home run, and the pimp job of the year. I don't even know how the bat went forward. He was throwing it backwards, but it went forward. I don't know.
I wasn't sure he was going to make it back to home plate.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought maybe he was just going to go run to center field and do the whole thing, but no, he was awesome. Yeah, he took my hand off too, just as bad as Ronnie's, I think. But no, it was awesome. And then I think when I went in the dugout after that inning, I kind of looked at Ronnie and Perry, and I was like, "Oh, here we go! Like that's what we needed. Like that's the start we needed. Now we just got to count outs. We got to count outs. We got to make plays and get us out of this thing."
And then did the moment when Cade Halemanu gets the strikeout to end it, you get to feel that experience again of everything we've been working towards. And again, it was a year where that didn't always seem like it might be possible at the end. But for it to end that way, as the manager, did it have any different feel, or was it very similar to the first one?
Little bit different feel. I think a little bit. But I mean, it's the joy of winning. It doesn't really matter what role you're in. You feel like you've accomplished something. The team has accomplished something. These players have done something special. But yeah, it was weird. I almost don't even remember seeing the pitch. I just remember, seeing it and seeing the umpire, and then just jumping with the staff and being excited. But yeah, no, it was a really cool experience winning that whole thing.
What has being a manager and being involved in the coaching staff in Charleston meant to you?
Oh, it's awesome. It's it's kind of a brotherhood thing. It's kind of like being around people every day, saying hi, doing the same thing, but it's a different day each day. I think that's why I like baseball. It feels the same, but everything's a little bit different. You're going to see something you've never seen before in baseball every day, like Myrtle Beach hiding a guy in the dugout during a pitch. So it's just one of those things that day to day with your staff, with people around the stadium, it's fun. It makes baseball exciting and seeing something new every day.
And I'm guessing when you were a kid, you're probably dreaming about playing and having these moments as a player. And now you're a manager. You get to experience a championship as a coach. You got to experience a championship. How excited are you about what you get to do every day and where your career is taking you?
I love it. I've always loved the game of baseball. I got good people around me in my family that, accept this career because it's not always easy being away from home and doing certain things, and it's not easy. So I got, my wife and my daughter, are great. They are with me, my family. And then just I love, it's baseball. It's always been a part of my life. I think it always will be a part of my life. It just where it takes me.
And you're still willing to get out there in between innings and catch some warm-up pitches.
Yeah, it depends on the arm. Depends on the guy. There was a couple times where I said I'm not doing it.
If it's Marcus Johnson, you're feeling pretty comfortable back there?
Yeah, Marcus Johnson. I think Trevor Martin would have bounced one just for fun. But,
right, on purpose.
Yeah, because that's who Trevor is, and he would have laughed at me. But no, every once in a while I still feel young enough to go catch one, and then my knees hurt the next day from squatting for 2 pitches, and just not the same.
It's defeating, isn't it?
Mm.
Oh, that's
Very
funny. Awesome.
So.
Appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much for carving out part of your day to do this. It was great to meet you in 2021 when COVID kind of prevented us from actually working together, but appreciated everything you did in 2023, and it was really fun to watch you in your first year as a manager.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jason. Thanks for everything to you as well, man.
Absolutely. Take it easy, Sean.
You too.
Thanks for tuning into our first episode. We're really excited about this project and to talk to all the people who are involved in these 3 championships. If you have a comment, a question, any feedback, or there's somebody that you want to hear from these 3 championship seasons, please let us know. Leave us a note at Facebook, Twitter, or X, or on Instagram at Chas RiverDogs, CHAS RiverDogs. As we get toward the holidays, we'll have a couple more conversations coming out. But again, love to hear from you and can't wait to talk to you again soon.